everyone. I was gonna make a live and then I realized how that is not the way for me to do things these days because of having to stop every couple minutes, or probably more like 5 or 10 minutes, to support Sylvie. So we're gonna go to story style instead and try to get in this habit, because this is how I would actually be doing readings and kind of like getting the foundations built for myself of like how I can communicate with others in this chapter of my life, since it's so different than my life before. Okay, we just dumped over the whole plate. Are you trying to get my attention? Oh boy. Okay, and actually doing that is super helpful, because I just realized if I, as I do readings, I'm going to do it this way with story style, because then I can add captions. And I don't know about you, but I never used to do captions on anything until having a kid. And now it's half the time I can't have my volume on because she's asleep on my chest and I don't have my headphones or something like that. And captions have been so helpful. I notice most of the mom accounts that I follow use captions, and I think we all just get it. So yeah, that's probably going to be part of my readings, is sending it this way so that you can add captions. And then in 1 minute blips, it's normally I can normally get through that long before having to stop and do something else, right? It's mom brain has to be in 20 places at once and ping-ponging constantly. Does anybody else feel like that? Because that's at least how I am. Okay, let's talk about how much I know about astrology compared to you, and why that is not what I care about. Something that has been, I don't know, kind of bothering me, I guess, kind of a pet peeve feeling that's kind of gets under your skin when you're out and about in the world, is noticing how many astrologers promote themselves based on almost a feeling of being better than you, not intentionally. I don't feel that is what they're meaning to do, but I think that is the way that things have been done in the past from past generations of the world, and it doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't feel right to be the person that's well, I know all these things, so please pay me money because you just don't know, and you don't have the skills, so I'm better, so that's why you should pay me. Okay, now that disdain for that approach, it definitely could stem from my own personal pains of perfectionism and my lifelong feeling of needing to know it all, and that being a really big barrier to entry of me actually putting some of my innate skills and things that I have to offer to the world out there, just because I see everyone's acting like they know it all. And to me, if I think I have to know it all, I will know everything. I will not stop, and then I won't ever do anything for other people. So that could be one reason why I don't like that way of offerings being worded. And since my daughter's moon is in Virgo, and from what I have read, she may face a lot of similar challenges with perfectionism in her life, I'm really doing my best to get out of that practice so that I don't overlay it onto her as a baby. And yeah, that's why I'm here, not perfect, not knowing everything about astrology, and still willing to help other people, because I've always heard that the best teachers aren't the people that are experts, that are super successful or super knowledgeable into whatever you're looking into. Instead, it's the people who have just gone through the chapter that you're going through now, because they remember the things that they had to learn, the ways that they had to do things, the struggles. They could empathize. They also remember the little tiny details that they will forget years and years on. And so though my daughter is still a baby, I don't know what she's in, maybe toddler, she's almost about to walk, so she's in that in-between stage. She's very young, and I'm making resources for babies and kids that are not her age. So I've also always heard your ideal client, your ideal person that you can help is you 5 years ago. And I'm sitting here thinking like, well, I don't have a 5-year-old. I don't have any other children. Like, why do I feel like I need to do this? Like, why is this feeling right? Making resources for parents to connect with their children on astrology. And I realized, well, 5 years ago, I was that star seedling. I was that baby astrologer, not understanding what the heck anything was besides a sun sign. So I was that baby. And now I'm not that baby. I've learned a lot over, I think it's been longer than 5 years. Probably 2016 is like when it really kind of sparked, although I was always dabbling since like, you know, middle school. Reading like horoscopes secretly and being like, ooh, this totally makes sense, but don't tell my mom, because I was raised in a Catholic church and went to Catholic school my entire life, so that was like super woo and not acceptable. But anyway, so like I recently went through the whole process of learning all of the basics, all of the foundations, the pieces of the puzzle that really matter, and then you get to color them whatever flavor, intent, and perspective that you want after you understand the basics. And that's what kids are at. Like, that's what they're learning. They don't know big words and big feelings and big archetypes and big future plans. Kids are still learning the basics of life. Shapes, colors, numbers, time, maybe angles. Like, that's even a far stretch, right? Like, they're learning to still color in the lines and what plants are. So that's what I went through the last 5-10 years of my life, and that's what I can share on. And that is something that I've always been naturally good at, and not something that like I have like, I don't know how to word it. I don't want to sound like better than thou. That's my main point of this whole freaking video. But it's like, I have always been helpful for people, making concepts that are somewhat complicated and big and making it into really approachable, like beginner intro level topics to where they're not intimidated by it anymore. I used to teach pole dance and it was the same way. So just hopping back to my backstory a bit, once upon a time, a different life ago, I was a pole dancer for fitness, and I loved it so much. And again, I had done it for a couple years, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. This is like, so, it just clicks for me. It just like happens. Probably because I was a gymnast growing up. It's a different story. But I loved it, and I knew that I could help people like get started. So I started teaching intro courses and classes, whatever, at a studio, and then I loved that so much, and I saw how big of a scary point there was for getting to a studio, and how studios were not very accommodating to that point, and it really relied heavily on like friends that were like dragging their other friends into a studio versus women who were like trying to empower themselves. Okay, I need to wrap this up. But I ended up opening my own studio because I wanted to welcome women to a space where they could learn about themselves and grow into the place that other places were not welcoming them, and that wasn't so know-it-all-ish, much like the astrologers that I was referencing in the beginning of this story. And so, yeah, it's hard to wrap this up because Sylvia's needing me, but that's what I'm here for again. I'm just here to like show the basics and make it easier to put those pieces together to where it doesn't feel like a scavenger hunt, and it doesn't feel like you have to ask a lot of stupid questions to get started, and to share it with your children, because most things are worded in really big terms that you have to like find ways to like simplify it down for children speak, and I'm gonna do